Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about training and developing a 500-yard shooting capability for SHTF, okay? Shit hit the fan, apocalypse, Armageddon, World War III, however you visualize it, we're going to be talking about developing that capability and that ability, okay? Specifically 500 yards. Now, we're also going to be talking about what type of gear you should have, um, you know. But the first thing, before we get into any of that, a lot of people will question the need to train that type of a capability, right? Do you need to be able to shoot 500 yards? Okay, a lot of people argue that, any self-defense type of situation, any conflict is going to be mostly, inside of 100 yards or even CQB distance. Okay, so now definitely you gotta have that capability to fight CQB. You gotta train that. You gotta practice that. You gotta be able to hit targets at 100 yards. Again, you gotta practice that. Well, here's the thing, especially like CQB, right? Close quarters combat inside of a house, right? That could be a 50-50, okay? So if at all possible, you would prefer to avoid CQB, okay? Now, the way most of the houses are built in the United States, they're all made out of what? Like a little bit of wood, mostly sheetrock, so in an SHTF type of situation, okay, people don't need to enter the house to clear it. They can clear it from outside by just riddling it with bullets, okay? So they can put enough fire on the house, or throw fire into the house, right, to get people to come out, okay? So you may not have that option. You may prefer to fight your gunfight at a longer distance, okay? So it's just one of the things to keep in mind. Like SHTF, is not your standard everyday home defense. Okay, we're talking about a different situation where people can just firebomb your house. Okay, so staying inside your house and hunkering down may not be the best option for you. Okay, so that said, okay, let's move on. In that scenario that I just painted, yeah, it's better to engage people at distance, okay, preferably from a position of cover. So, what distance would we like to engage them in? I would think as far away as possible, okay? Now, if we're defending our own territory, we would have the benefit of having one of these guys, right, with a big magnification scope, to give us as much advantage as possible, right? Because we're not traveling too far. We don't need to worry so much about lugging around heavy equipment, food, supplies, that kind of stuff. All we need is the gun, and ammunition, right? Maybe a light, but that's kind of like the home turf advantage, right? You can set things up in advance. You can plant extra magazines in places, okay? So now, a lot of people might say that, fighting a gunfight over 500 yards is just stupid. I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it, okay? And that's fine, okay? But here's the thing, okay? You may not want to do it. You may not like doing it, but that doesn't mean that other people aren't going to do it and other people aren't good at it, okay? So that's one of the things to keep in mind. You may not like that kind of gunfight, but other people might, okay? So you might not get to choose what kind of gunfight you're going to get involved with, okay, in that SHTF type of situation. So that's why it is worth developing a 500-yard shooting capability. Now, why 500 yards? Why not 700 yards? Okay, well, you know what? Once you develop the 500-yard capability, I don't need to tell you. You're gonna be like, okay, how much further can I extend my 5.56 or 308 or whatever you're shooting? So once you get the 500 yards and you're good with that, then on your own you're gonna be like, okay, well, let's see how how much further I can stretch it. I have been out to 850 yards with this 5.56 128 variable scope, shooting 77 grain Sierra Match Kings. Okay, so with 77 grain ammo, you can get to 850 yards. You could probably get past that. I just haven't gotten around to that yet. Now, a lot of people will question how effective are the bullets at 500 yards, 850 yards. Okay, so like everybody knows that the 5.56 is most effective out to about 200 yards. Okay, yes, that's where the bullet is going fast enough to cause that hydrostatic damage, to do damage to the surrounding tissues. Okay, but one of the things to keep in mind is that if I've got a person at 50 yards or 100 yards that I'm fighting, okay, wounding them is not good enough. Okay, I have to actually stop them. Okay, I have to prevent them from being able to move and fight. Okay, so that's why we need that. We need to do as much damage to them as possible. From their perspective, right? Somebody that's attacking me and they're at 50 yards or 100 yards, right? From their perspective, even if they're wounded, okay, they're going to probably quickly figure out that their best chance of survival is to continue to press the attack forward, okay, and defeat me, rather than try to turn around and escape. Because if they turn around and escape, for all they know, I might just shoot them in the back, okay, which might be a very logical thing to do in SHTF, because if I don't, they might just recover and come back a few days later, right? Continue doing whatever they, continue their plan. Okay, so from their perspective, anywhere from from zero distance out to whatever 100 yards or so, if they're wounded, their mindset might be that they need to continue the attack forward, which is why we need those bullets doing as much damage as possible. We need that velocity to do the hydrostatic damage, which does damage to the surrounding tissues. But past 200 yards, right? Let's say at 500 yards or 850 yards, okay, we don't need to do as much damage to them, right? Even if we're putting little 22 holes in them, right? If somebody's out at 500 yards, their mindset is different because they've been wounded. The best chance of their survival, okay, is not going to be pressing the attack forward after they've got a 22 in them, okay? The best chance of their survival is going to be to retreat out of there, to get out of there and go get treated, okay? So that's why inside of 200 yards, yeah, we need that 5.56 going, 3,000 feet per second or whatever, more than 2,500 feet per second. But past 200 yards, right, it's okay that it's only putting little 22 holes, because we just need them to run away at that distance, and not continue to press the attack forward. Okay, so we want, or I mean, ideally, maybe it would be better if we set it up so that if we use the caliber that would finish them and they wouldn't come back. But that may not be an option, right? That just may not be an option, because if we move up, let's say, to a heavier gun like an AR-10, it's a heavier gun. You need to stockpile much more expensive ammunition that's heavier, takes up more weight. So, you fight with the gun that you have, right? Not the one that you wish you had. Okay, and most people have 5.56 ARs. Okay, so I wanted to kind of lay that out. Okay. First to the argument of it's not good enough for 500 yards, and yes, it is, because it will wound them and it will make them stop attacking forward. It will make them get out of there. Okay, and also they can't just sit out there at 500 yards. Remember, lots of people, not many people, but lots of people, right? Percentage-wise, right? Lots of people have a 500-yard shooting capability. Okay. So you don't want them to be able to just camp out there at 500 yards, all right? Let's say with a gun like this, right, that has this high power scope, all right, and be basically just picking at you all day, so that you can't get out of your house. Okay, you have to be able to send bullets out there to make them know that you are a threat to them even at that distance. Okay, you need to be able to threaten them. So you need to counter what they're doing. Okay, so that's another reason why you need that 500-yard capability. Okay, um, so so let's go to so what do you need to get to 500 yards? Okay, so as many, because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll buy a scope like this, right, and they'll be like, okay, it has a bullet drop compensator, you know, but they don't get to practice 500-yard shooting. So the first thing that you need in order to develop a 500-yard shooting capability is 500 yards. Okay, you got to be able to get to a place where you can shoot 500 yards. Most places, like, and I'm here in PA, right? You would think that there would be like 500-yard shooting ranges all over the place. Most shooting ranges are 200 yards. Okay, I have to do quite a bit of driving. Right, I got to do about 2 hours of driving to get to a 500-yard location, and then beyond that, to get to like more, to get to 800 yards, 1,000 yards, I got to do like 4 hours of driving. Okay, so even in a rural state like Pennsylvania, there's only like, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4, 1,000-yard ranges. Okay, I don't know them all, but there's not a lot. Okay, it's not like there's a 1,000-yard range, you know, like, you know, an hour away in any direction within the state. That's not the case. So you got to do a little bit of driving to get to a location where you can practice 500 yards, and the practice is really important. Okay, so here's the thing: if you practice at a 200-yard range with 5.56, right, you got your 50 yards, 0, second 0, 200 yards. So about 200 yards, you know, you're basically, you know, you're getting at least 4 or 5 inch groups. Okay, you know, I can put you on a scope that, you know, a variable scope that has, let's say, a bullet drop compensator on it, you know, a little magnification, and within like, you know, within a half hour or so, you're going to be getting nice hits at 500 yards. Okay, so shooting 500 yards is not hard. Okay, particularly if you got an LPVO with some magnification, but you got to practice it. And as many people have said in different YouTube channels, the skill does not magically show up on the day of the test. You got to practice it. So I would say that you have to get to a 500-yard range at least 12 to 15 times before you get sufficiently comfortable with shooting 500 yards, right? That you know that you can just draw on that skill. You know, that you can go back to your 200-yard range and you know, and practice your groupings there, right? In fact, one of the things that I do, because I can shoot 200 yards every day. Okay, I can come here every day. You know, this is where my office is. I shoot 200 yards every day. Okay, what I do is I put in a 22 conversion bolt into my AR-15s, and that allows me to practice the equivalent of, let's say, shooting 600 yards, right? Because the 22 is dropping down a lot, I'm able to use that bullet drop. So that's one of the ways that I practice shooting long distance, by putting in a 22 conversion bolt, and I can use the different holes, and I can deal with the wind. However, it's not, and that's good for maintaining your skill, but you still have to actually shoot 500 yards, you know, with 5.56, right? Because the wind does do different things, you know, on 5.56 at 500 yards. Okay? So as far as what equipment, what gear do you need? Okay, so here's the thing. Here I got an AR, 5.56 AR with a red dot and a magnifier behind it, shooting Tula. Okay, Tula 223. I took this out to 500 yards the other day. I already posted a video, and it's the group that I have here with the hearts. So on a man-sized target, right, this is about as wide as my shoulder, you know, basically shoulders to crotch, right? There's a man-sized target. Okay, 5 out of 5 on target. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's about a 15-inch group. That's about 3 MOA. Okay. So even with cheap Tula, you can get to 500 yards with just a red dot and a magnifier. Okay, you need the magnifier. And it's not expensive. This magnifier is the Holosun magnifier, $200. You need the magnifier. It makes a significant difference. Okay, you need a magnifier, the minimum 3x. Okay, now you might say, I mean, why use Tula, right? Because Tula is like the most common thing out there. Like people stockpile like thousands and thousands of rounds of this. And even if you don't like Tula, even if you don't have Tula, you know, if you need to be resupplied, you know, especially if I'm the one resupplying you, this is what you're getting. Okay, so your gun and you better be able to work with this stuff. Now, if I shoot better ammunition, right, with a better with more magnification, yeah, sure, this group shrinks down. Okay, a few days earlier, I had been there and I had an LPBO and I shot a 9-inch group with PMCX stacks, okay, which is better ammunition, right? And when I've been using, if I use match grade ammo, my groups are going to get even tighter. Okay, so whatever ammunition I'm using, whatever gun, whatever scope, whatever's on it, right? I keep a record of how I'm doing with that particular setup, and I basically every time I shoot that particular setup, that configuration, I try to do better, right? Every time I shoot it, or try to at least maintain, you know, the level of skill that I have. So that's really important. You gotta, you know, if you got different rifles with different configurations, you can get there with all of them. You can get to 500 yards just with the red dot and the magnifier. I mean, I can't. I guess I could get there with the red dot, but the holdovers become really hard because you gotta be able to see the size of the target. Right? If you got just a red dot, okay, at 500 yards on the paper like this size, right, which is a man size, like, right. So basically, I took. At see, here's the thing, with a 50-yard zero, right, 50, 200 yards, you put your dot here, you're either 3 inches high, 3 inches low. At 300 yards, you put the dot in the face, you drop it into the chest, right? At 400 yards, you put the dot on top of the head, and that'll drop it into the chest. At 500 yards, you take the size of the man belt to head, right? And that's your holdover, okay? So that's about the size of this paper. So my holdover on this was exactly the size of the paper over, right? So whatever this is, that's how much I held over, and that's what gets me to get effective combat hits. So again, this is one of those things that you have to practice, and you have to get good at. Okay, and you have to, you know, you actually have to do it. You're gonna have to do it at least 12 to 15 times to get comfortable with this. Okay, so after 12 to 15 times, you can go on a 500 yard gun range, and basically just get into position and take your shots. You know, just cold, just go straight to 500 yards. Okay, that's the level that you want to get at. Okay, let's talk about now different options. Right, so here I got red dot with magnifier. Here I've got LPBO. This is a 1 to 10. Without a doubt, shooting the LPBO with the magnifier is easier. I mean, it's just a lot easier. I got more magnification, and I got more, you know, I got better holding points. Okay, and if you've got a high power scope like the 5 to 25, it becomes way easier. Okay, way easier. However, in SHTF, we're looking now for, especially if we're going to be moving, we need a gun that kind of serves all purposes. So even though this is great for 500 yards, it's not great for, you know, CQB inside your house. Even though I have a red dot on it, there's still a lot of weight on this. You know, this is very top heavy, right? So if I hold a gun like this, this wants to roll over to the side. Okay, the LPBO, right? But that weighs 2.5 pounds. This over here only weighs 1.5 pounds. So this is less top heavy. This wants to roll over less to the side, and that's a significant consideration if you're going to be moving around. Okay, the red dot with the magnifier, it rolls over even less. You know, I mean, there's still, I mean, it definitely throws off the balance. There's definitely some more weight up there, but you know, I mean, so this is one of those things to consider. So you want to be able to get to 500 yards with all these three options, whether it's a red dot magnifier, LPBO, or high power scope. You want to practice with all of them. Now, I had said that you got to get out to 500 yards at least 12 to 15 times, and it's not like you got to be there 12 to 15 times with each of these configurations, because a lot of the things that you learn with the red dot and the magnifier are going to apply to the LPBO and so on. So in total, right, you gotta get there 12 to 15 times. Okay, so in total with all this, and then of course after that you got to continue to go every once in a while. Okay? Now, what is the hardest thing? Okay, this is one of the things I wanted to really get to. What is the hardest thing about shooting 500 yards? Okay, the hardest thing about 500 yards is dealing with the wind. Okay, one of the things I heard from somebody else is, if God created all things, but the devil created the wind. Okay, the wind is the devil's creation. The wind can completely mess you up. And I got wind ribbons on all the trees here. I got wind ribbons at different locations that I shoot. And the problem with the wind ribbons is, like, the wind can be doing different things at different points. And what the wind is doing closer to you has more an effect versus what it's doing further away to you. So the wind can really screw you up. So I'm going to tell you guys a fact, okay? A fact that I have seen. You will shoot better at 500 yards with, just a red dot and a magnifier and like tool ammunition, right? You will shoot better if there's no wind, okay, compared to having a high power scope and like 77 grain Sierra Match King, match ammo, okay? The wind will mess you up even more, okay? Now, there's the LPVO and the high power scope, because they got either a mill grid or they got wind holes. If you can figure out what the wind is doing, okay, you can hold for the wind. But again, the problem is that the wind does just weird shit, and it's inconsistent and it changes from second to second. So the thing that I have found to be the most effective is if you're able to spot the impacts, right? And you're not going to be able to spot the impacts with the red dot and the magnifier, right? 3x is not enough to see the impact at 500 yards. The 1 to 10 LPVO, yes, you can see the impacts if it's depending on what it's impacting. Okay, so if it's like this area here is wet and it's mushy, and when bullets go into the dirt, there's no dust that pops up or anything. So I could be like blasting away over here, right? Or or if it just rained, and I'm not going to be able to spot impacts because it's just going to get absorbed by the ground, and there's no way to see what the impact is. Okay, but if you're at a location where the impacts basically leave some type of a mark, right? They cause a dust up of something. The LPVO and or the high power scope over there, it's something with a mill grid or wind lines. If you can see what dot the impact is on, then you just shift that dot over to your target and pull the trigger immediately, right before the wind has a chance to change direction. You shift it, whatever impact you see the impact on, you shift that dot to the target, pull the trigger a few times, and that's one of the things that you also got to practice. Don't just practice doing rapid fire at distance, right? Like poof, poof, poof. Send 3 bullets out there, so that especially in a situation like that where you're dealing with wind, right? Shift the point of aim over and send 3 bullets out there. So you got 3 bullets on their way there before the wind has a chance to shift again. So that's again something that's got to be practiced. Okay, so that's how you I have found that that's the best way to deal with the wind. Spot the impacts and make an immediate shift using the mill grid, or the wind. If you got wind holes, you need some type of a Christmas tree. Okay, the 2 standard ones out there is one, like let's say with the Raptor, which has dots for wind. Okay, which is fine. You can use those as holding points, or something like a mill grid, which again, now that each of the dots is like a mil apart, and fine, you can use any one of those dots. That is the best way that I have found to deal with the wind if the location is such, or the environment is such, that you're able to spot the impacts. Okay, so again, that's an advantage of having a high power scope with magnification that has holes. Now, it works both ways, because if you can't do it to the other, like if you're in an SHTF situation, if you're not able to do it, and spot impacts because of the way the ground is set up, there's a good chance that the other person might not be able to spot impacts either, and make corrections. Okay, so in most places, what one person is seeing, the other person is kind of experiencing the same thing. Not always, not necessarily the case. But again, this is something that needs to be practiced, because, like I said earlier in the video, just because you don't like doing something, you haven't practiced, you don't feel comfortable doing it, it doesn't mean that the other person out there isn't capable of doing it. Okay, so if something is within the realm of of not possible, right, but within the realm of what is commonly possible, right, commonly possible. There's lots of people out there, right, that lots and lots of people out there that shoot 500 yards on a regular basis, okay? And they will have a significant advantage over you if you don't practice shooting 500 yards, okay? Or what they'll do is you will find yourself handicapped, because now you're not able to get around and move because you're afraid that, hey, other people can shoot 500 yards, but you can't shoot 500 yards. Okay, so you don't want to find yourself handicapped like that. Okay? So that's why I think it is worth your time and effort to develop that capability, being able to shoot 500 yards. First of all, it's fun, so it's a good reason to do it. But also as part of your SHTF capability. Okay, so let me know what you guys think. And like I said, the most difficult thing that you're gonna quickly realize is the most difficult part of this is dealing with the wind. But in an SHTF type situation, whatever the wind, the wind difficulties are going to be the same for either side. All right. So if you got two guys shooting at each other, it's going to be the same going back and forth. Right. It's going to be just as difficult for either side. So that's fair. Okay. So but you don't want to find yourself in an unfair situation where the other person has a capability that you don't. Okay? So drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you all soon. And I'm also gonna put a scope and optics playlist in the comments and description, so check that out. Hey everyone, I wanted to just talk about two more things. Okay? One is that people that typically live in cities will tell you that, hey, I live in a city, I don't have to worry about shooting or being shot at from 500 yards. One of the things that they don't realize is that each city block is about 100 yards, so five city blocks is 500 yards. Okay, so if you peek out your window and you look left, that's usually 500 yards. You look right, that's usually 500 yards. So you've got 500 yards, 1,000 yards total of shooting distance that you need to be able to cover. Okay, so that's the first thing. In fact, you're going to find 500 yards plus more in the city than out here in the woods. Like here, I'd have to basically be shooting down a road to get 500 yards, or be in a very open area like a shopping plaza or something. So you're going to see 500 yards more often in the city than not. Okay. Now the next question, or the next issue that a lot of times comes up, is that people say, hey, the people that have a 500 yard capability are usually the ones that train. They're of good moral character. They're the good guys. The bad guys, right? The people that walk up to you and shoot sideways, right? Those guys don't train. They don't have capability. The bad guys won't be shooting 500 yards. Okay, so what I suggest you do is rethink your concept of what a good guy and a bad guy is in SHTF. Okay, so one of the things I have told people is that in SHTF, World War III, Apocalypse, Armageddon, okay, complete social breakdown, where the food trucks aren't delivering, okay? There's no food to be had. We're dealing with a famine, okay, or an oncoming famine. Nobody with guns is going to allow their kids to starve to death, okay? They're going to use whatever tools and equipment they have to feed their kids, okay? There's in that type of a situation, there's no good guys and bad guys, okay? It's just who's dead and dying and who's alive and surviving, okay? Just I'm not gonna go too deep into that, but just something for you guys to think about. Okay, talk to y'all soon. Drop some comments below. Okay, let's go take a look. Yeah. The third time it's the ones with the hearts for Valentine's Day, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got 5 out of 5. Hold on, that 5 out of 5 at 500 yards. Okay, but so I dialed up with 3 mils, and I'm gonna hold center because I think the wind's died down. I'll try to get my brook under control. Okay, let's go see what we did. We got 4 out of 5. Yeah, and the first time we shot it, we got 5 out of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first time we shot it, we got a, what is that? 12. Total group was about 12 and a half. And then the 4 out of 5 was at 9 inches or 8 inches. Hold on. 8 inches. 4 out of 5. So not not bad. I mean, yeah, you gotta pay attention to the wind and properly calculate for the wind. You guys, I want to share a funny thing with you guys that I heard. God created all things except the wind. The devil created the wind. Okay, the wind is the devil's creation. Okay, that is gonna mess you up. So I'm looking at this ribbon over here, and it's like I'm trying to figure out what is it doing, man. I mean, it looks like it's walking. That's what it looks like it's doing. I was looking at it, and they were like just going back and forth, those things, like 2 legs that were like walking a minute ago. I'm trying to figure out what the freak is the wind doing today. I mean, it was blowing left, and it was blowing in, and it was blowing out, and now it's just walking.